The two articles seem to have a larger theme of food. In this article, written by Salil Ho, there are many areas in which the author references the generalization of food and its relationship to culture and how immigration has affected that. In the Pan article, written by Sarah Stratford, the author talks about how women were subjected to being in cooking in the kitchen in the past. These two articles speak to the main claim that food and cooking have large impacts on society and that there are other topics, such as culture and gender, that can be greatly affected by it. Looking first at the Craving article, Ho talks about how being a second generation immigrant has affected her life in terms of the foods that she ate. She begins by talking about how other people she met had commented on the food she was eating and would make generalized claims about what she had told them. This is a main piece of her argument. Ho is speaking to a larger idea that the westernization of foods brought and made by immigrants causes the cultural significance of that food to diminish and fall to something less unique. She even mentions how, over time, you grow to associate nationalities with the quaint little restaurants that you used to frequent. This is a clear example of how even a small, westernized understanding of a certain dish can greatly impact one's view of the entire nationality and culture that the food comes from. Another point that Ho makes is that it becomes hard to represent one's own culture with the foods that you eat when this generalization exists. Specifically when she states, "It's because I wanted to be like you." This quote is showing how she wanted to eat American foods over the traditional Vietnamese dishes she was served at home, as fitting in with others based on the food she ate was much simpler than attempting to release her own culture from the generalization that it had been succumbed to. The Pan article relates to these ideas when Stratford talks about the idea of gender positions in the household in the past and how cooking had been affected at the time. Stratford begins by talking about the post-war era and how convenience was a large factor in the new products that were created at the time. This idea of convenience had actually been the driving factor that really led women out of the cooking and cleaning position within the house, rather than women looking for work. Products at the time were focused on making each household or out-of-the-house activity much easier and accessible without prior knowledge or experience. This is explained in the article when Stratford writes, "A tin of Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs tasted exactly like what was served in Naples and required no cleanup." This mindset that there were new, much more efficient products formed the concept that there was more time during the day, thus leading more women to enter the workforce at the time. Both of these articles serve a much larger purpose, to show that cooking, or really any significant activity, can have large impacts on the people and ideologies that experience and represent it.